In today's show, recapping what we learned at Trailblazers Media Day. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, it's going to be part one of our Media Day recap. That's right. Media Day so big, so juicy that we are going to turn it into two shows. I just want to make sure we give all of the little bit of news that trickled out from Media Day its fair shake. So we'll do it in two parts. That's what we do here. In today's program, we're going to talk about what we learned, starting with sort of the newsy stuff. We got a little bit of news about the Trailblazers' potential starting lineup this year. Some injury updates, some insight into what a new offense might look like, and Joe Cronin discussed a little bit of how he has approached team building in light of the Blazers' goals to win games immediately, shift into winning time mode. We will do all that, and then part two, which will come out shortly after this. You're listening to Monday's program. It's going to come out on Monday afternoon in Portland, or Monday evening if you live on the east coast of the United States, or at some other time if you live all over the globe. And then Tuesday's show will be part two of our Media Day recap. We'll talk Young Hansen, we'll talk Drew Holiday, and some other odds and ends, making sure we give proper time to everything that deserves a little bit of attention during Media Day. But let's start with the newsy stuff. If there was anything that was like curious about Blazers Media Day, with some injury stuff, and like I'll give you some updates on Rob Williams and Scoot Henderson to close the show here. But it was who's going to start this year. Like, I think the Blazers have some locked-in starters. Donovan Clingan's going to start. Toumani Camara is going to start. Denny Avdia is going to start. I believe Drew Holiday is a stone-cold lock to also start. So we're really talking about the fifth starting spot. Now that Scoot Henderson is out for, according to Joe Cronin, somewhere between 4 and 10 weeks, there is one remaining starting spot for two guys. It was going to come down to Shaedon Sharpe and Jerami Grant, most likely. That was the most likely. I think it was like there was a world in which, with Scoot in the mix, that he was your starting point guard, and I kind of thought they would lean that way. But always there was going to be one starting spot between Scoot, Shea, and Jerami to sort of shake out. And I have mentioned in the past that I am a little bit. I don't really know. I don't think I subscribe to the idea that like. It's an open competition in training camp. I think that's a nice thing to say. I think that's like a nice sentiment. I just think it's not true the way the NBA works and the way politics work. Certainly you can play well enough in training camp that the plans change, right? It's like, oh yeah, this dude needs to play. It's like he's going to get in there. But I think a lot of the who starts type of stuff is decided in sort of other places for other reasons, as opposed to like the practice court where it's earned. And in that light, and obviously the curiosity over who starts and my sort of belief on how many starting spots were truly up for grabs, I asked Jerami Grant when he sat up at the podium. I asked him, like, you haven't started, you haven't come off the bench in a basketball game in 5 years. He hasn't come off the bench since the bubble. And he even started at the end of the bubble. So like, one game randomly in August of 2020, he spent 5 consecutive seasons as a full-time starter. And I asked him if he had considered, based on that role and his history, what it might be like to play in a reserve role this year. And he said, nah, I don't expect that. He hasn't even considered it because he doesn't expect that. If there was any bit of news that came out of Media Day, this was it. And obviously this is not earth-shattering. I don't think you should overreact to it, but the reason I'm leading the show with it is because I do think it was the most, in terms of like newsy sound bites, this was the newsiest of the sound bites. Essentially, I thought, before we get into the starting lineup stuff, I thought Jerami Grant was refreshingly honest in a way that Media Day doesn't always allow for itself. I mentioned on Friday's program, shout out to my everydayers, that one of the things I was going to look forward to heading into Media Day was if anyone broke the facade. Because now, this time of year is just so positivity focused, right? Good, right? The world needs more sort of just like designated times to be optimistic. I think that's good. But this time of year, like in general, media day is when every franchise across the NBA is like feels good about themselves, right? They're like, we're in a good spot. We feel like we're doing the right thing. We've had great summers. Just sort of the sobering reality of playing NBA games hasn't set in for guys, and so you do get it, like in general, more optimistic comments, sort of broadly more optimistic comments. But I don't think Jerami Grant was that broadly optimistic. I think he was more of the sobering honesty. And part of it is this comment. The other one is like someone asked him if he expected over the summer to be back in Portland. And he said, probably not. Probably not, but I'm happy to be here. And I thought that was a sobering and an honest, earnest response. I expected to be traded. I expected like I had been kind of deprioritized. And I think that's the word I want to stick with here. Jerami Grant left Denver in order not to go, the reporting is such that Jerami Grant was basically offered the same amount of money to be like the fourth banana on the Denver Nuggets, or a very similar contract to be the dude in Detroit. And he left and went and became the dude in Detroit. And in Portland, while he was like maybe the second guy to Dame when he first signed up and signed with the team, it was clear that he was prioritized, right? A starter, a big offensive role, and all those things. And then when he signs his contract, despite what some of my maybe other media members have said in the past, even on this show, Jerami Grant signed his contract with the Portland Trail Blazers, in my opinion, knowing full well that Damian Lillard was way gone. The timing of events does not allow me to suspend belief and think that Jerami Grant did not know that Damian Lillard was on his way out the door when he signed that contract. So he signs that contract knowing, again, he's going to be the guy, right? $160 million. And I think that's kind of the place we find ourselves in now, is that Jerami Grant is not the guy anymore. He was pretty bad last year. He shot 40% on 2-pointers, and he's being deprioritized, not benched, not kicked out, not never sniffing the court again, but like Tumani was more impactful and better than him. Deni Avdija was just straight up better than him. Jerami Grant is at his best a good basketball player. He was not at his best last season, and that struggle mixed with the emergence of young forwards made it so he's the third guy in the pecking order in terms of just like Blazers forwards. However, every single game of his Trailblazers career he has started. When the Blazers took off last year and won 10 of 11 games, it also included Jerami Grant coming back from an injury and getting placed into the starting lineup, and the Blazers ripped off their best stretch of the season. They're playing big and playing with this like 3 forwards and a guard and a center type of grouping was the best version that they were all season long. And so now with Scoot Henderson out of the lineup and Shaedon Sharpe, a promising young player, but not so undeniable yet in his early career production, the Blazers, it seems to me, have already said, Jerami, you're going to start. You're going to start. And so now the most likely opening night starting lineup seems pretty clear is Jerami Grant, along with Drew Holiday, Tumani Camara, Deni Avdija, and Donovan Clingan. I mentioned months ago that if that was the starting lineup, I wouldn't be surprised. And so I am not surprised here. It's not what I would do. I just straight up wouldn't do it. But why the Blazers might be doing it is because of the politics of this. It is not so much Jerami Grant's paycheck, although that certainly often plays a role into this type of thing in the NBA. I think it is the worry that if you do continue to deprioritize Jerami Grant, if he does see himself as the sixth man and a guy who just, who's going to come off the bench and be a role player, and maybe not even close games and all these things, you just lose him. He just lets go of the rope. And so my read on this is not so much that it is a way of saying, Shaedon Sharpe, you're not good enough, or Shaedon Sharpe, we're not invested in you enough to be a starter. It is more of a understanding of the politics of NBA basketball. If we don't do this, at least to begin the season, Jerami Grant's going to jump out of the boat. And our hope for moving forward is that this thing takes care of itself, right? Jerami Grant's still invested because he has a role that allows him to stay invested, and you don't get him totally checked out. Because he's not checked out, he plays better, you win more games, and perhaps it'll solve itself such that Shaedon Sharpe, when he comes in, is just awesome. And then the conversation gets a little bit easier because it's like, hey, you're moving to the bench because this dude rocks, right? Because he's been undeniably good. And those conversations get easier once you see production on the court, or maybe lack thereof if Jerami Grant continues to struggle. But I would say if there's anything newsy, it's that I think we know the Blazers' opening night starting lineup, and it includes Jerami Grant in that group based on what he said here. Do I expect Chauncey Billups to confirm this at any point if you need to have it be confirmed with multiple sources to believe this reading of the information? No, I do not expect Chauncey Billups to talk about that openly. He shouldn't, but I think we will. They're going to play a preseason game in I don't know, 8 days, and we will just it'll be obvious and right in front of us when it happens. But that's that. If there was anything newsy, it's that. The other thing I had mentioned that I was going to keep an eye on is whether the Blazers made a hard commitment to making the playoffs. Whether they were going to be a team that was had a firm goal of being a playoff team. They were shy of a firm goal. Let's talk a little bit about that and how Joe Cronin's sort of logic about the roster allows him to be a little bit soft on what a goal that seemed a little firmer back in July. Join me in that second segment. We will talk about just that. First, though, let's talk 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. You can take a 5 Hour Energy shot with you because they're small. They're going to fit in your pockets, depending on the size of your pockets. They're going to fit in your backpack, your computer bag, your fanny pack, what have you. It's a big taste in a tiny shot, and you can take it anywhere. So you can get the boost you need when you need it. Whether you're into sort of the traditional flavors like fruit punch or the mixed berry, or you want to hit some holiday flavors like pumpkin spice, you're going to find something you need. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine the flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get your favorites you loved, or be bold and try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com. That's numerical 5hourenergy.com, or on Amazon today. Today's show is also brought to you by the good folks over at DUER Jeans. And you know what? They're just making really comfortable pants that you can do anything in. Would you like a pair of pants that are extremely comfortable and allow you to do anything? Well, what great news. That's what they got. DUER makes jeans that have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, so they feel stretchy without looking stretchy. You can look good. You can look presentable, ready to go to a meeting, ready to go to a nice dinner out, but you can still be active. They're the jeans made for doing. DUER are the pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim. So it's time to upgrade to the world's most comfortable pair of pants. Get your new DUER jeans today. I know you'll love them. And DUER are opening a new store right here in Portland on Northwest 23rd. In October, you can check them out. 820 Northwest 23rd Avenue is where the store is going to be. This is the new era of denim in Portland, and you can mention my promo code LOCKEDONPortland in store. You get 15% off your first order, or check them out online. Shop DUER.com/LockedOnPortland for 15% off. That's shopDUER.com/LockedOnPortland. All right. So if you're listening to Friday's program, I talked about breaking the facade. And I thought Jerami Grant was very honest in a way that is refreshing, albeit not particularly positive honesty. And we got a little bit of news out of that positive honesty. It's why I'm in favor of honesty. You get a little bit of news along the way. The other thing I was curious about is whether the Blazers mentioned firm goals, right? Like, this is the time of year you ask, what are your expectations? What do you consider a successful season? All of those things, right? And, at media day, at X interviews, Joe Cronin said, yeah, I think the playoffs are a reasonable goal for next season. But he was kind of pressed. It was a direct question. Do you think it's a reasonable goal to try to aim for the playoffs next season? And yeah, that's reasonable. Sure. But then at Dame's press conference, Joe Cronin went a little further and he said, it's winning time now for the Trailblazers. I would say that today he walked that back a little bit. Not saying actually we're not going to be good. In fact, when asked specifically about the winning time comments, he said, I want to make the play-in, I want to make the playoffs, and if we get there, I want to win 16 games in the playoffs. I would say props to Joe Cronin. If you're going to say we want to make the playoffs, you might as well say we want to win the championship, hence the 16 wins. Go further, right? Go further. Now, don't cut yourself short. So they didn't go that far, and Billups didn't go that far either. You know, that they kind of dialed back those expectations, because putting firm borders on it is not. It allows people like me who talk into microphones with some regularity to be to kind of circle these comments and come back to them, right? So like, I understand why you hedge. I understand why you are. I understand in general why you wouldn't be as firm in your expectations. But what I did ask Joe Cronin is that, how do you score? Because Cronin was said, you know, like, we understand, like, we're still in a range of development where some of our young guys have to really get better for us to be consistently competitive. And that remains the truth for us. And I said, okay, well, my question to him was, how do you square that acknowledgement that your young players have to take a step forward with the additions of two, you know, guys in their mid-30s, and Drew Holiday and Damian Lillard? Because, like, those dudes' best years are coming up, right? Like, you would assume that this is, you know, Drew Holiday's under contract for 3 more seasons. It is a decent guess that the best year of the Drew Holiday experience you're going to be getting is the first one, right? Because he's 35, 36, and 37. You know, Dame's missing this season, but like, would it be a safe bet that the earlier part of the sort of Dame recovery, as opposed to like deeper down the line, it would be better, although it takes time to get back from an Achilles, and Dame thinks he's going to be really stinking good. We'll talk about that more in tomorrow's show. So like, you know, I do think those are the types of moves that would sort of maximize a shorter window, but the GM is saying, well, we understand that we have a longer window, because we have to be, in some ways, we have to just, like, one of our young players, you know, more of our young players have to take a step forward. You know, he's talking about Shaden and Scoot Henderson. He did mention, like, Denny Avdia, we gave him the ball and he never gave it back. He was really good, and we're happy that at 24 it worked out, right? But what Cronin's answer was to that question was that they have chosen, and intentionally so, to put some guardrails on their young players. And I thought that was an interesting and honest way to describe that, is that they have, by the way they have built the roster, intentionally made it so there isn't just free minutes and free massive role for their young players. They've wanted them to earn it and play the right way. I don't think I agree with that approach for a team that was in the position they were the last couple seasons. Like, that's not what I would do. But I do think, like, admitting that is intentional and purposeful, and why you do it, there's some value there, right? The reason that you add veterans that are talented in front of your young players is because you don't want to just roll the ball and say, go for it. You want to see them have some example. You want to have some fallback in case they struggle. You want to have guardrails, both in sort of because of lack of talent, and because of it's a way to limit a role for a player that is not ready for a big role, right? It serves a couple purposes there. I thought it was interesting. But what Cronin said is that in time, he hopes it solves itself. I find that to be truly fascinating, because if it does solve itself, like in terms of the young players taking a jump, it does sort of complicate the decisions made this offseason, right? I do think the best case scenario is that everybody's good. I think that's the easiest solve. Shaden Sharp's really good. Scoot Henderson's really good. Dame is healthy and really good. Drew Holiday remains really good. If you have a bunch of good players, that is a fairly easy thing to solve via the trade market, etc. If some median outcomes happen where guys aren't quite good and other players are getting it, it's like, that is when it gets a little bit dicey. But I would agree with Cronin that if it solves itself, if the young players do take a leap, and specifically the two young guards do take a leap, it solves itself. But I thought that was interesting, because it was not the yes, we want to compete for the playoffs and we know it's going to be hard, but we want to do it. It was a much more measured, less firm commitment to that goal than we had previously heard, for obvious and intentional reasons. But I thought notable, because this was not a team trumpeting. Like, they think they're going to be good and competitive, and I think they're going to be competitive basically every night, albeit with some limitations. But, like, this wasn't a team trumpeting success, right? They said, we felt like we were really good last year. We established an identity in the final 41 games. We can build on that identity and get better, but we know that we still have steps to take. That is probably a more measured, but for me, a little bit admittedly a little bit less fun way to approach that particular question. So, did they say the P word? No. I think it's obvious players want to take that step forward. I think it's obvious the Blazers are going to play this season out and no tanking shenanigans. They're going to try to win games, and come what may, and maybe they stay healthy and get healthier, and other teams don't, and it all works out great. But I think they've set themselves up in a position where by their comments today, they are being realistic about the challenges still ahead for them in a way that is open and honest in something that even the most cynical of podcasters, you're looking at them, can appreciate. We got injury updates. Let's talk Scoot Henderson and Rob Williams to close the show. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel wants to make sure that you are ready for all the games with a can't miss, or at least a you don't want to miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So, however you like to make wagers, building parlays, player props, betting live games, say spreads or money lines once the games happen and you're following the action, whatever it might be, you're going to find that action on FanDuel. It adds another layer to your football watching. If you're already going to be on the couch, maybe check out FanDuel and add a new layer. So, what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today, and get started. All right, still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond, and you are still listening to Locked On Blazers. Here's your injury news. Scoot Henderson, as was announced by the team on Friday morning, they called it 4 to 8 weeks before he resumes basketball activities. Joe Cronin offered a little more clarity on that injury news, saying that when he had talked to the team's medical staff, that it could happen as he could return as quickly as 4 weeks, or it could take as long as 10. And if this is a hamstring injury, which is something that could linger in cases where that sort of the recovery is a little stubborn, is the word Joe Cronin used, that it could be longer than 10 weeks. But I would say upgrade your 4 to 8 prognosis to 4 to 10 realistically. And then if we hit the 10-week mark, which would be like the first week of December, basically December 1st, then we'll start to, put our antennas up. But I would say extend that window of like reasonable recovery time to about 10 weeks. So how did Scoot Henderson injure himself? We knew it was at the practice facility. We knew it while he was playing, but he explained a little bit. So they're playing 5-on-5. One of the big emphases, I think is actually the word. A major emphasis for Chauncey Billups this summer was just because the team is young, he wanted his dude to play a bunch. So they've been back in the practice facility, and they've been running some, they've been installing the offense already. They gave up the goods, but they've been playing a bunch of 5-on-5, just like open gym, 5-on-5, get it together, play, get a feel for your teammates, make mistakes, play fast, run your stuff, but play in these sort of open settings and just play a lot of basketball. It's a big emphasis for Billups. And Scoot said that there was a loose ball, and he reached for he was like kind of going for a loose ball and overextended his left leg and tore his hamstring. And that he said it wasn't anything like when he watched it back on video, because they have the practice facility has everything taped or whatever, so you can watch your shots, and also, so back in the day, Paul Allen could watch it from his yacht. But like Scoot Scoot said he got to, go back and watch it. And he said it was just kind of a freak thing. Like it wasn't some sort of drastic, terrible misstep or fall or slip, or he got caught or whatever. Just overextended and took a wrong step, and his hamstring, and his hamstring tore. It's a bummer. So, 4 to 10 weeks, into November, I think is the safe bet, and maybe into early December if it lingers a little bit longer. So it's a bummer, just for like as I mentioned in the episode I recorded on Friday night. Like, it's just such a big year for Scoot to prove that he is like the guy and capable of being so much more. And just like it's such a big prove it year for him, just just in every way, right? As a basketball player, as a member of the Trailblazers, as everything, like, and he's going to start with a setback, and it stinks. And he was pretty positive. He was pretty upbeat, but like, you know, he talked about like one of the things he focused on this summer was like taking care of his body, right? Like being like making, you know, doing the things so he wouldn't get hurt. And then he's like back before camp even starts getting hurt. It stinks. It's a bummer when anybody gets hurt. But it's for in a situation like Scoots, also a bummer. Rob Williams has not been cleared to play 5-on-5 full contact basketball. I did see him in the Rico Hines videos playing with his teammates a little bit. Perhaps that's not full speed. Perhaps he's not going full speed. He was a little bit coy about what he is cleared to do. He said pretty much everything, but you can guess. I like that. Thank you, Rob. And he also said that him and the medical staff had chosen a date. They had a target date for his return, and then declined to give the target date. Thank you, Rob. I do appreciate the coyness though. There's part of me that's just like, tell us, who cares? But there's another part of me who says like, this is your body, man. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Rob has, you know, I asked him about sort of the mental toll of like doing this again, another injury, another media day, more questions about his body. And he said, yeah, like it does, it takes a toll on you. But what he's learned by virtue of being injured often is that you just can't dwell on it, because then it starts to go the other way. So one of his big things is that he's incredibly positive. He has a motto that he says around the practice facility that includes a swear word. So I am going to, edit it slightly for this family-friendly show. He says around the practice facility, stuff is light. It's light. He wants to remain positive. He doesn't want things to be heavy. He doesn't want them to drag him down the other way. Stuff is light is the Rob Williams motto. He said like one of the big things for him is just conditioning, right? It's just getting back so once you can play, you are able to play and not putting your body in jeopardy by being out of shape. So I think some of that waiting to get clearance is just like being in like true NBA game shape. I would be pretty surprised if Rob Williams plays a single minute in the preseason. I just don't think we'll see him do that. He may be cleared to play 5-on-5, but I would be pretty surprised if he plays a single minute in the preseason. But I think it sounds like he is getting closer. It's just hard to know what closer means. Does closer mean November 1st? Does closer mean December 1st? Does closer mean, game 1 of the regular season, he will be able to play. He just isn't going to play before then. Yeah, I think in terms of Rob news, I think you probably were hoping for a little bit better, that he had been cleared and was playing and ready to go. But I am, as I mentioned a bunch of times on this show, the Blazers were really cautious with Rob Williams last year. I anticipate they'll be very cautious with him this year, which means that like Young Hanson's going to play early in the season. He might be the backup center on night 1, game 1. I think there's a decent chance he is the backup center on night 1, game 1. Like he walks into a first game of the season, and not a role because like a role out of necessity. Like obviously he might earn it in his own right, but like they will need him regardless if he is ready or not to play because of the way the roster works. And that's I'm rooting for everybody to be healthy. I don't know. That's not a controversial opinion that I would prefer basketball players be able to play basketball. The only other injury news you need to know is that Dame is out for the year. I mean, he said he didn't say that full on at his introductory press conference, but anyone willing to read between the lines heard it loud and clear that he was not going to play this season. But he mentioned this year. It's like he mentioned when pressed, I believe, by Bill Oram of the Oregonian, like press meaning like asked directly in this situation is like, is there a scenario in which you'd come back? And Dame was like, probably not, right? Like even if they were number 1 in the West and like going into the playoffs, no, because if they're number 1 in the West going into the playoffs, they've got it figured out and they don't need me. Like, so Dame is no Dame this season, and we're still waiting on Scoot and Rob. Everyone else, according to Joe Cronin, maybe some bumps and bruises, but everyone else should be available and ready to go into training camp, which is happening the rest of this week. Speaking of that, we got more to talk about. We got to talk about Young Hansen. We got to talk about Drew Holiday. We got to talk about a handful of other things from Media Day, and I will do that in an episode coming tomorrow in your feeds. That's what we do. Come back for part 2 of our Media Day rundown with a heavy dose of Young Hansen. Join me for that show and join me the rest of the week. Five days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.